In the post-war period, from let's call it 1945 to present, the modern structure of organizations is largely built on a command and control hierarchy model, which is largely what we call a vertical model, whereby the CEO maintains a significant portion of the authority, control, and power in the organization, and that power cascades down through the ranks of the organization in a largely command and control sense. And that works really well when conditions in the marketplace are highly stable. In other words, where we have to deploy resources in a highly efficient, very functional way to achieve a relatively narrow set of activities and tasks in the marketplace over and over and over again. So for example, if you're McDonald's in 1970, 1980, 1990, and you're essentially trying to grow the business globally, it's efficient to deploy your resources in a vertical hierarchy so that everyone understands exactly their role. You're able to functionalize and drive results out of marketing, sales, manufacturing, and other efforts, for example. However, as I've said in previous blogs, the world in which we live is no longer stable, and what we're finding is that the need to deploy resources at an ever higher, quicker, faster rate is becoming more important than, if you will, vertical hierarchical control. And as a result of this major shift, and if I could add to that, the shift of both employees and ultimately consumers wanting more power over their experience in the company or with the company, adds to the fact that individuals in the organization want to play a greater role and have more control over how their day is spent and or how they experience the products and services that companies offer. When you bring all this together, what we find is that in order to be nimble in the marketplace, organizations have to bring together diverse talent in ways that is no longer enduring. So to solve a particular problem or to achieve a particular opportunity in the marketplace, to get the app to market quickly, to meet a new emerging consumer need or customer need, organizations have to apply resources in ever more diverse ways to make that possible. Often those resources are not within the boundaries of the company. Often those resources come from the customers themselves in sort of a co-creation model. Often those resources come from people that traditionally would not have hierarchical representation in the business. So therefore, the question that organizations have to deal with is how to bring together diverse talent over relatively short periods of time to achieve certain outcomes or solve certain problems, blow those resources apart, reassemble other resources in different ways. What this sort of brings to the fore is the question, is the vertical hierarchical command and control model for organizations now becoming obsolete? We believe that it is progressively becoming obsolete as, if you will, nimble startups and insurgents inherently are capable of bringing together talent and blowing it apart at an ever faster rate, whereas the traditional incumbent, slow-moving, if you will, dinosaur in a particular industry is not so good at that. But increasingly, your ability to deploy resources quickly to the point of need is a competitive advantage that can't be ignored. We believe that this gives rise to a new concept of organizational structure, a new concept of leadership, which is much more about horizontal, if you will, connection of resources as opposed to vertical hierarchical command. There was an article written in the Harvard Business Review in 2014 that talked about understanding new power. And in that article, they illustrated an example which described the command and control hierarchy really all about being, the leadership model being about allocating currency of leadership down through the ranks of the organization, being our traditional model. They further argued that the increasing need to deploy and redeploy resources brings a new way of leadership to the fore, which is all about managing the current, or if you will, making connections across traditional silos or across traditional ecosystems in a more grand scale. That's becoming more important. And as a result, what we're seeing is a trend, three interesting trends which I think are converging that are very interesting. One is increased opportunity for contingent workforce solutions. In other words, talent which is temporary, that goes into an organization and then comes out. 2 is the rise, if you will, of the portfolio career, in particular for younger people, where they may work in 4, 5, 6 different organizational contexts at a time, which is fascinating to observe. And then 3 is the leader as a coach, as opposed to the leader as the boss. And we're seeing that in particular this is being pushed up by the millennial generation, who for the last 5, 6, 7 years, CEOs have been resistant to the needs of the millennial generation in trying to become more a part of the solution in the business. But now we're seeing organizations embrace that and work in a very different way, lead in a very different way. And we think that the horizontal organizational construct will be one that allows organizations to be much more nimble and mobilize resources at an ever faster rate. This will be a key element to being able to successfully execute your strategy and achieve market dominance in the next generation.